Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Sunday talk within the Nine-Sided Circle. I'm your host, Noor Kyle.
And I am her faithful sidekick, Mushtaq Ali.
Yes. And thank you so much for joining us, whether you're here live, so many wonderful people here with us live tonight, or if you're watching on the replay, we know we have some lovely friends out there watching as well. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here. I will try to, as always, keep the spiel short. But
Actually,
given,
you're going to let me do the spiel tonight,
oh,
remember?
go for it. Go for it.
Yeah.
Be happy.
So, if you're watching us for the first time, welcome. If you're not watching us for the first time, welcome also. We would ask if you would be so kind to take a moment to hit the like button on this video and help us out, help us get up in the algorithms because YouTube has changed its algorithm again, and it's getting harder and harder to get people to find this. If you hate us, then let me ask you to hit the hate button. As a matter of fact, hit the hate button twice. And
Careful what you ask for.
no, no, I want them to hit the hate button twice. Anyway, and the usual like, subscribe, and leave a comment. We love comments. We can't always answer them, but somebody will answer them at some point, and some of the other people's answers are way more amusing than ours. So feel free to leave a comment. And um, yeah, you have an opportunity if you'd like to support our channel to hit one of our donate buttons down in the
Donate
comments
link.
below.
Yeah.
And we would appreciate that because, as you know, living in America is getting way more expensive
And dangerous.
and dangerous. So that's the spiel. Let's get on with the show.
Well done. All right. So, this evening, it seems we have a topic that interests many of you because we are going to be talking about true awakening, state and station. That is the title of our topic this evening, is it not?
It is indeed.
Yes. And we are always going on and on and on about being awake and yada yada. What does that mean? Of course we're going to
And
be
how
with
do we do it?
yes.
How do we do it?
So,
So, Noor, what is a state and what is a station?
so a state is often like a flash in the pan. It's something that we may like an aha moment. We might think of that as a state, a moment of inspiration, a moment of surprise, of some kind of transient mood or experience. I would define a state in that way. As for a station, we're talking about something a bit, well, it's permanent. A state is permanent.
That you mean a station is permanent.
Yes, can you tell?
Fired, folks.
Yeah.
I'm putting her on the spot, and it's very cruel of me.
A station is when you take a state, let's say, and make it permanent.
Yeah. Do you think it's like the difference with the Buddhists between a non-abiding and an abiding enlightenment or awakeness?
I mean, we could think of it that way,
Mm. We
right?
could steal from the Buddhists. We don't mind.
Sure. Yes. Most of us are going to find that we spend a lot more time in states rather than stations.
Yeah. Everybody seems to have the station of sound asleep and having weird dreams, if that makes sense.
Hmm. Weird dreams, huh?
Yeah. Like right now, we're dreaming about World War III.
And getting all wrapped up in that story, huh?
Yep. So here's a question for you, Noor. What
Sure.
does it mean to be awake?
Hmm. What does it mean to be awake? Well, this is a question that's going to seem like it's only got fuzzy answers. And it's because the only way to truly answer this is through personal experience. But we can make verbal attempts at talking about what awake is. And the way that I define being awake, awakeness, is to perceive the vivid, wordless clarity of the present moment. So that means all of the classic things you hear, the be here now, the let everything be as it already is, all of those are words that circle around this particular experience that we're talking about. But the key to this experience is that you can't really talk about it. You can't describe it perfectly as it is. You have to taste it.
Yeah, you can't, all you can say is stories. You can tell people stories about being awake, and maybe those stories might guide them towards the experience, maybe not. But it's like the Taoists say, the Tao that can be described is not the Tao. So we have a few ideas about this, though. So as we said, awake means perceiving reality as it is. No frills, no floaty music, just seeing what's here, what's now, without filters or fairy dust. One of the hallmarks of this experience, and I'm just telling you stories right now, just like I said, is that uh, get to experience the oneness. We talk over and over again about Wahdat al Wajud, the oneness of being. And that is the foundation of the awake state.
Yeah.
And that means when you look at your annoying neighbor, you experience a sense of oneness with them. When you look at your cat, you experience a sense of oneness with your cat and you want to open a can of tuna for them.
Or scritch behind the ears.
Yeah. Now, the interesting thing about the awake state is that it is effortless. And you're going at this moment, wait, what? What do you mean? It's hard. I have to work hard to get to the awake state. No, you have to work hard at stopping yourself from getting to the awake state. That's where the hard work is. All right, everybody do this. Hold up your hand. Now, I want you to try and keep your hand from falling off your wrist. Just try that for a minute. Try really hard to keep your hand from falling off your wrist. What does that experience give you?
Unnecessary stress.
Yes, there is nothing that you need to do to keep your hand on your wrist. Unless you're working with a circular saw, then maybe there's a couple of safety things. But other than that, uh, and we call this the natural state because that's what it is. Everything else is moving away from the natural state. And being in the natural state doesn't mean that you are a member of some kind of special club. It doesn't mean that there's any stress or strain. It's your baseline. It is where you are meant to live. And if you're not there, then you are actively opting out of that state.
It's a pretty wild thought, isn't
It
it?
is a wild thought. And we aim to misbehave in this talk, as my friend Mal used to say. I don't know if anybody will get that reference here. I hope so.
I think you're in a good spot for people getting that.
Me, Firefly.
Yes. One of the things about the awake state is that duality tends to dissolve. It tends to disappear. The idea of us versus them is a story that you no longer tell yourself. It means that you have to take off your damn stupid hat, whatever it says on it, and just be there, hatless. The awake state is the hatless state. I like that. Somebody should write that down. That's probably super wise. So, what do you think, Noor?
Oh, I'm just thinking about how, I mean, it's our perception is that it's so easy to get distracted, that we're pulled away
Yeah.
from.
And we have a habit of being pulled away.
Mhm.
And that's what we need to remember. The sleeping state, the state of being in a dream, is habitual. And when you stop, you get withdrawals.
Mhm.
And that's the weird thing, because the state of illusion, the state of duality, the state of the dream is addictive. People are addicted to it. And if you stay in the waking state for very long, you start having withdrawals. One of the first signs of withdrawal is boredom.
Yeah, it's as if we need a certain amount of distraction just to function, which is so interesting because again, that's another story that we're telling ourselves about what is true.
Now, anybody can experience the state of awakeness at any time. You can do that right now. And one of the ways that we like to help people get there is to have them ask themselves, are you awake or are you asleep? And to check inside and see which one is true. When you do that, you will experience a moment of awakeness. And if you can take that moment and observe yourself being awake, you begin to expand it. Easiest way to do that is to stay within your breath as you observe yourself being awake. Now, you're going to lose it within less than a second with most people. People think, oh, I can stay awake. If you could stay awake for 5 minutes, you would be the Buddha. But the moment your will begins to wane, the stories jump right back in. And you find yourself telling them to yourself over and over again. And you distract yourself and you put yourself back to sleep. And then you ask, why doesn't it last? Spoiler alert, it's you. You ask, how do I get back? And the answer is you don't, because you never left. Trying pushes that state away. It's like trying to groom your cat with a vacuum cleaner. It just doesn't work.
Some are into it for what it's worth. I'm just saying, but
Yeah.
point taken. Yes.
How do I stay there is, again, the wrong question. Reality doesn't need sustaining. You are already there. And asking, how do I stay there, is like a foot asking how to walk. The right question, and we stole this phrase from somebody else, but we like it so much that we kind of filed the serial numbers off and gave it a new. It's how am I unenlightening myself right now? How am I unenlightening myself right now? Not anybody else, but me. How am I doing that? This is where self-observation comes in.
Yeah, I think hold that thought, James. I have some thoughts on that.
Tell us thoughts.
You sure? You don't want to continue?
No, I want to pause right there and hear your thoughts because you're smarter than I am. And
Well, we will get to that. I want to know, um, Frank, I see you unmuted. Did you have a thought you wanted to share?
Yes, ma'am, I did. Talk, I appreciate what you said, but you seem like you asked, well, how do I get there? And I just wanted to chime out gratitude. That's how I get there. If I keep my heart full of gratitude, then I don't seem to fall there. I don't seem to walk down that path. The chore becomes finding that which I find worthwhile in life, to be grateful for, um, whatever makes me grateful.
I
So
would
thank you.
suggest to you that gratitude doesn't get you there. It's just the cue that you use so that you can notice that you're there. It's a slightly
Yeah.
different perspective, but I think it's one that will be more useful to you because you are never gone from it. Not once, not ever in your entire life have you been gone from the awake state. You've just distracted yourself from it. Gratitude will definitely help you refocus, but there is no there for you to go. Starting to sound like some of the non-dual dudes.
Uh, would you mind if I replied?
Yeah,
Uh,
no, of course not.
I'm sorry. I have been doing this with you guys for a little while. And of course, I would not have ever been able to do this had I not developed some sort of a breath practice, because it's in the surrendering of myself to my breath that I find the strength to even find things to be grateful for. Before, in my challenges before working with you guys and trying to walk a spiritual path, I was troubled by all of the things that had happened in my past, and those things, my failures, my whatever it was, troubling things, negative things. And I found now that if I simply stop putting my attention on those negative things and once again align myself to that which I'm grateful for. And of course, the caveat is that it can't be something that I can buy, and it's usually not people, sentiment, finances. It's got to be something with a better motive. But all of a sudden, I've become filled with this feeling of it's really not it. Nothing is really that bad. When I explore those things that make me troubled, then usually that had only been death. when you get right down to it. Um, so, but yeah, it wouldn't have been possible without you guys in breath work. But I still have to hang my hat on gratitude. But I've learned so much from you. I would be remiss if I didn't shut up and continue to listen. So thank you.
Oh, no, don't shut up. Keep talking because your perspective is valuable. And what you're describing is a valid way to do this. I'm merely suggested to you a slight reframe to it so that you can own your state a little bit more. That's all. Other than that, don't stop doing what you're doing. Never try and fix something that ain't broke. And if that's the way you do it, you have found, in my sense, you found your question. Everybody ends up with a question. And, you've got Ramana's question of who am I? You've got Jed McKenna's question of what is real, what is true. You've got all these different questions that and as the work as the driver towards awakening. And if your question is, am I grateful? That's as good a question as any. Or what am I grateful for? However it is that you phrase it. So don't
What
listen
if
to me. Keep
what
doing what
if you
you're doing.
say I am, and then you look at what you really are? And if what you are is not the man that you want to be, then your I amness is wrong.
Yeah. Um, that's a whole different conversation that we should have sometime. We actually had it one time.
We did explore that once a few
Yeah,
years ago. So hold on to that.
yeah, hold on to that. So the big question becomes, how do we unenlighten ourselves? There are a few things. Emotional attachments, not connection. There is a vast chasm between connection and emotional attachment. So, emotional attachment thoughts will grab you. Good thoughts, bad thoughts, doesn't matter. Good thoughts are as attaching as bad thoughts. Slightly less because we respond more to pain than we do to pleasure, but that's a different story too. And that's what it is. The stories that we tell ourselves. Now, what happened could be true for you. What it means is the trap that we build. I was walking down the street and I stubbed my toe on a crack in the sidewalk. That's what happened. What that means is these goddamn worthless city officials who I pay my taxes to do not bother to spend money in an intelligent way, and all they do is mess up. Therefore, we have sidewalks full of cracks, and it's dangerous for an old guy to walk on, and they need to fix it. God damn it.
I'm thinking of all the narratives I've heard about potholes over my life.
Yep.
Yeah, there you go. Sidewalks, potholes.
Yeah, I don't drive anymore, so it's more
Yeah.
sidewalks.
I just can't believe, I mean, I'm a non-driver too, but I can sympathize with that struggle.
Yeah. So when you find yourself saying, that shouldn't have happened, that is your signal that you are putting yourself to sleep.
Yeah, this should thing, right?
Yeah.
Like we have a thing from James in the comments that ties into this. Um, James suggests he says, I think neurotic fear is also a distractor. quote, I have to think about this so I can finally resolve or anticipate blank, unquote. That's another should just
Yeah.
in disguise. I should be doing this. I need to handle this. Another hamster wheel for us poor souls to run around on. And Whitney offers consumerism.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting one. Again, that's another should in disguise. I should be buying things. I should have this. I don't want to
Or
miss out.
buying this will make me feel good,
Yes. Yes.
which sometimes is true. I on my personal Facebook page, I do reviews of knives and swords and stuff for people just because it's fun for me. And my next review is about a knife that's no longer made. It's the company that made it is out of business. But I bought that knife the day after some idiot killed himself by crashing his car into a buckeye tree in front of my house.
Oh no.
And I was the only this I was living out in the boonies. Uh, and I was the only one around. So I'm on the phone, not even on the real, like the cell phone. We didn't have cell phones back then. I was on my radio phone that goes, from the base station in my house, talking to the cops and everything, going, you need to get somebody out here. You need to get a coroner out here. This is bad. There's a body laying crushed under the car. And I had to wait for an hour before these people got there.
Mm.
And it was distressing and it was miserable and it made me feel bad. So the next day I went down to, of all places, uh, what did they call it? The something or other edge. Um, and it was a place for yuppies. This was in San Rafael, California. A lot of yuppies there. So you go to this store and they have cool things. And I found this beautiful bush knife and I bought it for myself and I felt better. Didn't do anything else. And it was a complete fantasy that I felt better, but I could look at the knife and go, this knife is better than people killing themselves in front of my house and making me take care of their corpse. There's a weird story for you. And nobody says a word to that.
Well, I'm just thinking about the things that we do to cope. We've all
Yeah, it
had.
was a total coping strategy at that part, and it tells you how long ago it was when nobody had cell phones.
Yes, Frank.
I can remember so many times the things that I did to waste a while away the hours with senseless worry or senseless dreams that could not come to fruition. I just needed to stay more focused. And I didn't know that until I knew that I had to find out something. I had to change my life. Something had to change. And those were the things I found out. Um, so I agree with you completely. I just wanted to say that.
Mhm. Thanks, Frank.
So judgment is another thing that screws us up. Judgment is very often fear in disguise. And that's something that we hide even from ourselves. So if we're making judgment about something, check to see if you're afraid.
Yeah, that sense of threat, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we really are oblivious to how deeply rooted that feeling is.
And Whitney says the self-critic, yes,
Mhm.
there's the biggest judgment of all. And then we have, this will upset people, I think, misleading paths. Some paths, some teachings, some teachers promise quick awakening, or they promise awakening after years of work. Goes either way. And those paths are incomplete. They don't get you there. The metaphor that I use is that a pack or a cup of noodles, cup of ramen noodles is not a real meal. And a lot of these places where you go are serving ramen and not the good kind.
Not a big old bowl full of good stuff.
Nope. So what all of this stuff leads you to is the dream state, which we like to refer to as the Netflix of the soul. It's not real, but it feels real. It's like CGI in your mind. Uh, it convinces you because you become emotionally invested in it. These things are like emotional Velcro. They stick to you until you peel them off. The dream state sticks. And even dispassion can be a trap. The I feel nothing does not equal enlightened. Ram Dass figured this out years ago, and he said to the people who would listen to him, for years I thought I was, uh, what's the word? Thought I was just free. And then he said, but then I realized I was just dissociated. And
Oh, yeah.
that's what happens when you go, I feel nothing, and go, I must be enlightened because I feel nothing. You're just being dissociated. To be truly awake means that you feel deeply. You just don't get attached to your feelings and tell yourself weird stories about them. Now, we have these two states, non-abiding awakening and abiding awakening. Non-abiding awakening is the state. It uh, Somebody said to me once, it's like a dodgy Wi-Fi signal. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't.
And maybe you're moving all over the place trying to pick it up
Yep,
in your house.
there's some truth in that. Abiding awakening is the station, and it means that that's where you go to. It doesn't mean that you don't touch the dream, but instead of being in the dream and touching reality, you stay in reality and touch the dream when you need to.
Yeah, that's how dreaming becomes purposeful,
Yeah.
isn't it? It helps you empathize with others. We've talked about that before. It helps you communicate in ways that are connecting you and others. It allows you to reflect on the past and dream about what's possible in the future. Those are useful things about the dream state. And I'm sure there's more besides, but that's different from living in the dream state.
So, how do you get there? We like to call this the purge. Not the movie, but releasing emotional, energetic baggage. This is where self-observation really comes in. And this is not a five-step plan. 5-step plan. It's not self-help. Self-observation. Sit down, get quiet, let your internal garbage rise. Don't flinch. Be a witness to it. Describe it without being attached to it. This is delicate work. It requires honesty, guts, and it requires zero spiritual posing.
And it's also different from judging, isn't it?
Yes.
Sense that you are just looking and describing what you see.
So one last little thing on this is the petty tyrants in your life are there to help you free yourself. So bless their annoying little souls. They will show you where your weak points are. So desire will not get you there. You have to have a drive towards truth. It's irrational, inconvenient, and it doesn't care if you're ready. It's not about feeling better. It's about getting real and being awake. And you have to realize that there is no teacher outside of yourself. Outside teachers are just props. I am just a prop. Nor is just a prop. We're just there to remind you that you are already in this state and you need to be not doing, not doing. Doesn't quite make sense, but you can work it out.
The doing of not.
Yes.
Yep.
So you don't achieve awakening. You stop tripping over your own thoughts. You stop asking yourself to stay in it. Start noticing how you leave. That's the biggest trip. How do you leave the awake state? A lot of people will find one thought that they use to put themselves back to sleep. We call that an anchoring thought. Trying to stay awake is like trying to tie your shoelaces over and over and over when you're actually barefoot. It just doesn't make any sense. Now, what do you get out of this? You get Wahdat al Wajud, the unity of being. It's when you can look at what appears to be the other and recognize the universal in them as well as yourself and realize that it is one being. That asshole neighbor of yours that's always letting his dog shit on your lawn, that is God looking out through his eyes and looking out through his dog's eyes and looking out through his dog's turd at you. Sorry, Noor.
I mean, this is the real talk, right?
Yeah, it's the real thing. And so, what do? You find your question. What is the question that prompts you to wake up? And everybody has their question, and everybody's question is going to be a little bit different. You can borrow questions from people. Like lots and lots of people have borrowed Ramana's question over time. It doesn't work as well for them as their question, but at some point it might become their question, in which case it will work wonderfully for them. We suggest that you try borrowing our question, or at least my question. Noor may have a different question.
really use I mean, this is the thing. We're using even the word question as a metaphor.
Yeah.
Whatever sparks that moment for you. You can call it a question, you can call it a spark. That's the thing that serves you until it doesn't serve you. And then you may realize that something else does. As long as it's doing this thing where it reminds you of yourself, where it reminds you that you are already awake.
Yep. And this is why some Sufis, but not others, prefer to refer to the divine reality as al-Haqq. Haqq in Arabic and most Middle Eastern languages means the true and the real. Haqiqa means the truth. And that's what it's all about. Understanding the real tells you exactly what Wahdat al Wajud is, which is there is no reality outside of the divine reality. There is true existence and apparent existence. And we live in apparent existence until we touch the truth. And then we move to true existence. And so that's what we've got to say about this. What do you all think? Yes, James, talk to us.
I have a question. It's kind of a bit of a side question. I agree with this model. In my limited experience, it makes sense and it works. Um, I was thinking of not so much the non-duality bros, but the popular ecstatic yogis. These so-called samadhis where you lose all object, subject is just blissful white light, all that kind of gear. Now, while it is not waking up, in my very limited experience, it gave me a sense of, consciousness without object, identity without concept, which definitely encouraged and reassured me, even though it also led me a bit of astray at the same time. It seemed to be a bit of a motivator. It seemed to have its uses, although it wasn't actual wakefulness. Is that a fair observation?
Uh, in the same sense that LSD and mushrooms have their usefulness, but it's not samadhi that you're talking about.
Okay.
Everybody gets this wrong. If
Yeah.
if you read Patanjali's Yoga Sutras,
Mm.
he talks about this, and he talks about the last three of the eight limbs of yoga are concentration, meditative absorption, and samadhi. And samadhi is best defined, in my
Mm.
personal opinion, as flow state. It
Mm.
is often defined as integrative consciousness. I think that's too complex for me. And then it goes on to say that these three practices, and he's very clear that each of these is a practice, not a state, when combined, become the samyama, which is the great practice. And it goes on talking about all of the benefits of combining these three practices and what it gets you in the worlds of consciousness.
I was aware of that. Well, I have been since associating with you guys, I should say. But in popular yoga, where Ananda got enthusiastically translated as bliss or ecstasy, and I know you're
Yeah,
in and of itself.
I have some opinions on that
Yeah,
too. It's like if you
yeah.
want bliss and ecstasy, there are really good drugs for that.
Yes,
You
yes,
don't
there
have,
are.
yeah, you don't have to sit
Or
on
so
top
I'm
of a
told.
mountain for 20 years.
Hmm.
Just go to a rave and, eat what you find.
That could take you all kinds of places. But,
It will. It just won't take you where you want to go, but you'll think
yeah,
that that's where you want to go.
but there is that very popular interpretation. It's Samadhi is, non-dual bliss. Samadhi is, oceans of light and no
Yes.
Yeah, but
concept in them,
it
right?
is only
Hmm.
that to people who have never actually experienced samadhi, experienced the doing of samadhi.
I mean, this is the issue, right? We have so many people aspiring to what they think they're looking for, or who just, just spout off at the mouth and have no idea what they're talking about. There's a whole lot of static, there's a whole lot of noise, and not a whole lot of objectivity.
You've just described the first 50 years of my life, but anyhow, keep going.
I mean, for so many of us, this was a thought
Yeah.
I was having before the talk is how many of us have ended up on some kind of quote unquote spiritual path
Yeah.
because we've had some kind of experience, quote unquote, or we've heard about somebody else's alleged experience.
Yeah, and this,
Now we
yeah,
covet that, whatever it is, for ourselves.
yeah, and trust me, as a child of the 60s, I can tell you that the number of people who got some really good purple Osley acid and saw God and then went, I want to get back there. And no amount of acid dropping would get them back there.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
they missed the point entirely. And that's the point of this talk.
Hmm. So it's staying here, not staying high.
Yeah.
Well put.
Well, that seemed to be the simplest. That was
Yeah,
the
I
conclusion
may
I
steal
came.
that from
Yeah.
you, man. That's a really
Oh,
good
grab it.
way to describe it.
Well, if anyone asks me what I think enlightenment is, I say, what version do you want, staying here or staying high? I don't think
Yeah.
staying high works.
No,
So,
but that's
look,
what people want because that's what the ego desires.
yes, and that was totally me, and part of me still is. Part of me still wants to go back to all that easy cruising glow, but I know that's not going to work.
Well, why do you think people get addicted to fentanyl?
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's still addiction.
Yeah, it's total addiction, but it will give you a version of that glow. It actually, what it does is fentanyl and opiates in general will stimulate a positive first circuit experience where you're back to the womb. You're floating in the womb and everything is groovy.
Ruby.
Yeah, I'm speaking my native language. Frank
But
gets it. At least there's
yeah,
somebody who speaks the same language.
I just want to say though, this is an opportunity for self-observation rather than self-judgment. This is
Yeah.
where the rubber meets the road.
Yep. And if you're lucky, you'll figure out however you got to that initial experience. Somebody will go, dude, you'll never get back there. You can only go forward.
Yeah. Yes. Um, but to massively rewind to what I said, I do feel that those initial experiences, in some sense, encouraged me or relaxed me or made me more inclined to let go of my story. But letting go of my story tended to be something different, the actual approach to that, but it made me more pointed me in that direction.
Yeah. The thing is, though, and this was a big revelation for me. If you truly experience the awakening, there is no getting back to it. There's only going forward from it. And the idea of getting back to it is the barrier to the
Yeah.
path.
Hmm.
Yep. And
But we've seen so many people do that.
yeah. And the sparks I was talking about earlier, the things that snap us back to remembrance of the awake state, those things can become idols if we're not careful, in the sense that they lose their usefulness and keep us hungry for something chasing our tails. If you catch yourself doing that, it's time for some kind of reset. It's time for a recalibration.
Mm-hmm.
Todd had his hand up for a minute.
He did. He's been very patient, and you had a thought earlier, Todd, that was
Yeah,
quite interesting.
it's sort of, well, so much of what we're talking about here, and I forget what this was in reference to, was going back to that should do this, should do that, the world should be that way, which leaves, and when it's the should, it becomes something inside your head and leaves the realm of what is.
Yep.
Mm. Yeah.
But I thought of, oh, this was something I just keep coming back to when Suzuki Roshi was, when people came to Suzuki Roshi saying they wanted enlightenment. He said something that seems flip, but now seems much more true than I think I am ready to understand, which he said, why? You won't enjoy it. And it's getting a couple levels, but I'm realizing that there were several more levels there that will take some getting used to. But the other one there, which also resonated with that, was there was a series of books, good ones, where there was a place in a horribly dangerous place that where you could go and you would be sure that your prayers would be heard by whomever. And Teal, who is much wiser than I, said, I would go there, she said, and I wouldn't pray for anything. I would listen. And just this discussion, just for reasons which I don't quite understand yet, brought both of those into my head at the same time.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Um, somebody who is wiser about these things may have more insights.
Thank you for sharing, Todd. That's definitely something that we can sit with.
Mm.
I'll just read James's thought real quick, and then Frank, it seems like you have something you might like to share. James says, it's only when I started to appreciate the staying high or staying here distinction that any of the Zen stuff I had been reading started to make any sense. That's fair enough. I think that Zen really speaks to that distinction.
Yeah.
They work hard to get at that distinction in the Zen tradition. Yes, Frank? And then I see your hand up too, Ian.
Yeah. Well, how do you stay awake? Mm. Well, I got to say that I use what I learned in the nine-sided circle. I've got to say that's it for sure. I learned from Mushtaq that I can put my attention on my breath and I can function throughout my day. And that when I put my attention on my breath, that strong, focused attention on my breath, that my life kind of bleeds in on my breath and I handle the things that are of a priority. So that was very helpful when I found that. And then I learned from Miss Sherry that I could put my attention on the movements, my movements, in such a way that I could almost hypnotize myself and also incorporate my breath. And then I learned from, I'm going to say his name wrong, but he's a Sufi, Fethigan Goulet. I'm probably destroyed his name. He's recently passed. But I learned from him that if I put my attention on my heart, that I can feel it. And it wasn't until I got my head, my thoughts out of my head and filled my head with my breath that I could think. And then when I started thinking about my breath and realizing that I could think on other things, I sort of shifted my focus directly to my heart, allowing my breath to take the place where my life had otherwise. And then I found that I could walk around feeling connected and that it's very hard to pull me away from that. But I can't rely on just my head. I learned in the nine-sided circle that they use uh, they use two elephants to tame. I'm going to say this wrong, but they use an elephant to train a domesticated elephant to train a primitive wild elephant. They do so by attaching him to the doggone domesticated elephant. And I learned that, the small elephants, even though they grew to be such controlled beasts that just such a small state could control a beast if it was given to him in the beginning. And so I learned that I had to learn things about limitations, myself. And so I played with all those thoughts while I thought on my heart and tried to stay on my breath. And I dealt with the crap that came up in my life. First things first. And I seemed to fall into a situation where I found that I could be useful. And then, following what I had learned in the nine-sided circle, I reached out and I tried to see how I might be of assistance to my fellows. And today I work with people that are, um, well, lots of different problems are out there in the world. And, they're all very similar, but it does all start with that I take away from myself when I put my attention on my heart and my breath. That's about the easiest way I can say it. So, and I learned that from Mushtaq and Shari and yes, Miss Noor, and it has helped me tremendously. I've been with them now, off and on here, but always participating. It's just that it's so late for me right now. But yeah, y'all got a good channel. This stuff works. It really does. So thank you for letting me share.
Absolutely. Ian, you had a thought.
Yeah, a couple of things. I wanted to first go back to the chasing the high thing. I mean, I remember I was doing that for several decades before I finally realized that just plodding forward every day was ultimately more useful. But the more important thing I wanted to comment on is that I found that perspective that you started with, that we're always awake, and that's the natural state in which we let ourselves fall into sleep. It's kind of the opposite to which I've always thought about it. And
Yeah, that's amusing, isn't it?
yeah, I like it, but I think it's going to take me a little while to get used to thinking of it in that way.
Yeah.
Totally
But
understand.
that's one of the really interesting questions. What if the natural state was always there and you just hide yourself from it?
Well, uh, something just occurred to me, which is that when kids are born, they're in it.
Yeah. So they say. I don't remember myself.
Well, no, but I mean, if you just look at kids and the way they operate, they haven't had time to grow their robot, and then as time goes on, and we get responsibilities, and we have to be able to operate in the world just in order to sustain ourselves at the very least, then by that time, our robot has to become competent enough, shall we say, to make all that happen. And in a since we're not really we in sort of the general population sense are not really exposed to influences that try to remind us of the possibility even of being awake,
Mhm.
it's perhaps not so surprising that the robot takes over and we are just not aware of what's going on with that. I was just, I hadn't been thinking of that. It's just kind of made itself up as I was talking.
Yeah, but there's something there.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, that's a whole other talk.
Yeah. I mean, just in passing, I'll touch on this in passing. It reminds me of the talks we've done about how for people who want to control others, it's in their interest to make sure everyone else forgets that it's possible to be awake, or that being awake is there underneath all of the bullshit that we choose to deal with, get distracted by, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And
And
it
go ahead.
sets it sets an interesting tone to think about the fact that this is the struggle, is that it ultimately, for the most part, comes down to us reminding ourselves that it is there, reminding each other that it's there.
Yeah, I, I think one of the things I find most valuable about this group is it's a weekly reminder.
Hmm. Yeah, that's that is why, even if we're not so into the, what do you call it, the joiner, not everyone's a joiner. I
I'm
took
not a
that one.
joiner.
Yeah, but having other people prompt us or just give us a nudge, and I'm always using the word camaraderie, like that's something a little bit different from joining to me. And I really appreciate having that in my life.
Yeah, I think of us all as fellow travelers.
Exactly. Mhm. And sometimes we develop bonds that are really close, but that's different from us all developing into some kind of weird hat wearing. Sometimes we wear t-shirts together. I'll admit, yes, that has sometimes been a thing, but it's not required. It's not part of the deal.
Yeah,
Oh,
which
I think it would be most amusing if you tried to introduce a
Oh my God.
A hat that we had to wear, I would probably immediately leave.
You'd be like, I'm out.
You
Bye.
mean I couldn't convince you to wear a picture of me around your neck? Rats.
Not this time. Yeah.
Next life, man. But Whitney has been waiting patiently.
Yeah, thanks for letting me ramble too.
No, I appreciate just what Ian was saying about having the reminder, being in a group. Because if I feel like if you don't, you get lost in all of the charade that's going on very easily. Um, but I was thinking about how easily, even within a group, people can mislead themselves if there aren't practical applications. Which is why I loved how Frank was talking about the breath and how you talk about the breath and how important it is to do practical application as opposed to just theory. A lot of people just want to spin the wheels and they think they know and they want to go with it all. But the practical application, I think, is really fundamental. It's always an interesting, well, it has been very interesting for me. And you said at the beginning about emotions and about negative and positive emotions, and I was, you know, trying to find examples of how my positive emotion was bad. Feels good, but it's when us talking here is remind me of just that idea of grasping. Is once you have the positive emotion, you want to grasp for it, you want to go for it, and then that's your focus, as opposed to just staying here, um, just grasping, and how often we do that. And I was driving the other day, and not far from my house, you drive out, and then I get to this road, and there's this beautiful hill, grass, cows, trees, and I love getting to that stop sign and seeing the beauty of this. And I was appreciating it, and I had that thought, like, why is this bad? And then I was like, oh, because some a-hole's going to come and develop it, and it's all going to go away, and I'm going to be pissed off about it. And I had that moment of, oh, this is where the good turns bad. And sure enough, they actually were building a road right through it, and it was nice for me to have that the moment of reckoning before they actually started building on it, of like, this is going to go away one day. It's all going to go away. So just appreciating that, and gosh, staying here, not grasping. So that's what I got.
Yeah, that's a really, the phrase that's coming to my mind right now is the whole idea of, I mean, we did a whole talk on this, but dying before you die, letting go while still appreciating. There's this weird paradox there where it's not that the enthusiasm is wrong, bad, hurtful, but it's that grasping part that you mentioned.
Well, and also how that when you do have that affinity for something, if it gets taken away, the backlash that comes.
Yeah, like you've been attacked by the universe somehow. That feeling that you've been assaulted somehow because this thing has been taken away from you. Much to think about. Thank you for sharing that, Whitney.
Well, it's probably time for us to wrap this up.
Yeah.
I hate to say it because we're having so much fun.
Well, there's some interesting stuff in the chat I would love to just touch on.
Yes.
Let's see. James had said, referring to the staying high or staying here, I'm sure some Sufi somewhere talked about the sobriety that surpasses intoxication. That's a cool thought. I like thinking about that. Perhaps so, James. And then Frank asked, when you find yourself asleep, could there be trouble waking back up? And James said, Well, I struggle with that every day, mainly because some notion has distracted me because it seems much more important. It's like a whole subsection of my mind is addicted to certain distractions, thinks they are somehow useful, despite 50 plus years experience proving they are not. And Frank says, complete certainty. I think sleep is sticky. We talked about the addiction factor. There is, for many of us, until we really attune to the feeling of being unstuck, we feel at home in stuckness. So let's put it that way. I mean, that's where the familiarizing, the practice, I know we've talked this evening about letting go of the struggle, letting go of the grasping and the needing to get somewhere, quote unquote, spiritually. But we have to unlearn some things.
Yeah.
And that's a whole thing.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. The waking state is a matter of unlearning, not learning. It's a matter of undoing, not doing.
How's that for Zen?
I feel Zen.
All right. So we do need to wrap up. Do we have anyone we haven't heard from who might like
Bert
to
hasn't said anything except about hats. And we're going to have to do another hat day. We have done that once or twice.
For fun?
For fun. Yeah.
Yes.
We do have an official Sufi hat. It's called a Stetson.
How about a combat bat?
Yeah, you could wear a boonie hat. That actually
Yeah,
kind of counts as a sort of camo Stetson.
I got a couple.
All right.
Are
Well,
we turning the water into wine here?
Could be. Just as long as you don't turn the wine into a hangover.
Yeah, there you go.
all right. Shri, yeah.
And then Mert.
Another great talk. And this ties in with what Frank said, that I find that, and I actually wrote it on my little email to my clients this morning, that I appreciate having the classes because I have to turn up every class because not everybody comes to every class. And I thought this is like these talks that you don't put a punishment or a penalty over our heads for not turning up, but the turning up, even if you're just listening, it's really useful. And it's that turning up even to my classes that I tell people, like, if you can't do it, just sit back and just watch, observe. You actually hear and learn from the listening. And I find that it takes 5 to 6 weeks before you'll even notice a benefit. So don't think it's going to be instant, because it just drives me crazy when I see things on media about get your splits in 6 weeks. I thought, oh, for God's sake, you can't get splits in 6 weeks. Not in the way that, unless, of course, I anesthetize you or something like that. But even this kind of work, because then I said, on the other hand, if you could actually relax in one breath, if you could actually be present in that one breath, it can be done. But you've got to turn up, just turn up, and all of a sudden you just start to notice little things. And I think that's really helpful, that Frank, we see you on a regular basis, not every time, but this is actually really useful. And it's a good reminder that this is part of the practice. Turn up, just turn up. That's it. Don't give yourself a hard time about it. And your reality, your presence slowly becomes more familiar. The end.
Yeah. So Mert, what do you think?
What do I think? I think Uh, I felt very sad when Ian said if we have the hats, he would leave because I would like the hats, and I think we should have a hat party.
All right, hat party upcoming.
Yeah. And Ian doesn't have to wear a hat, but if he does, he gets extra points. And M, we haven't heard from you.
No escape for you,
I'm too asleep to talk.
But you have
But
your hat on.
I've got my hat on, got my tesbih in my hand. Yeah, great talk, great reminding talk. And I guess that's a part of being awake too. We got to keep reminding each other to stay awake, to
Yep.
come into it, to stay in it as much as we can. So thank you so much. Great to be here.
Good to have you. And hello. We don't get to see you very often.
Yeah, so you have to talk more.
Yeah, hopefully I'll be able to attend to more meetings. But yeah, great meeting, excellent topic. I appreciate it. Thank you.
No thoughts, though?
Trying to escape thought, right? Isn't that what it's all about? No thought. Yeah. Yeah. Thoughts just bog me down, so I'm trying to do the opposite.
Fair enough. Or as they say, where Ian's from, fair dinkum. I hope I got that right. It's been years.
That's Australian. I'm from England.
That's right. I was thinking of James, not Ian. I was thinking of you, Ian, in a hat. I was trying to figure out what hat would be perfect for you. And
I do have a hat that I could wear one time
That's the
if
spirit.
absolutely necessary.
yeah,
I won't tell you what it is. It'll be a
Okay, I want to be
surprise.
yeah,
surprised.
if I look at you, I think Gandalf hat.
Oh,
Yeah, no, nothing like that.
not yet, you mean?
Not yet, yes.
No,
Jill,
I can't imagine myself in a Gandalf hat.
I can. It would be perfect for you.
All in due time. Chill.
I think there's a lot of distraction about hats going on, and you've really not awakened to the t-shirt notion.
T-shirts are so last week.
Well, but with your 60s connections, there's something in the t-shirts that wants to be
Maybe we
recognized.
need like tie-dye nine-side circle t-shirts. Oh God,
We
but
could do that. I'd wear one.
But I do really want to notice the question that is most common stopping my awakeness. So that's what I want to go forward with here.
Good.
Paying attention to
bringing
that.
that back. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank
I
you for this.
think that that's everybody. All right. I'm going to switch it over to Brady Bunch mode. Voila. All these wonderful people.
Yeah. It's been so lovely to spend this time with all of you.
Yeah.
Thanks
Hanging
for
out with you guys is what we look forward to. We don't
Yeah.
look forward to doing the talks because we already know what we're going to say. There are no surprises there. But hanging out with you guys, there's always some surprises.
All right. So we will be back at it next week, inshallah. So we can wager each other. Wager everybody watching on the replay. We'll get together again soon. Bye.
Bye.